But the new bill would make it completely
This change
exempt.
would say, hey, if you whatever your Social Security is, it's never eligible for taxation.
Okay.
It's going to be shielded from any tax.
This is Las Vegas Real Estate Now with local real estate expert Harvey Blankfeld.
What's going on with the new tax bill?
Yeah. So there's been announced a new bill coming. The House has marked it up a little bit, and it's been back and forth. And there's all kind of there's the campaign promises: no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, and no tax on overtime. Obviously, the devil's in the details on these things, but
Right.
ultimately, so right now, if you receive Social Security,
Yeah.
and that's your only source of income, it's not taxable anyways.
Oh, okay.
But if you have other sources of income, if you've got an IRA, if you got a 401k that you're got to take
Right.
required minimum distributions out of, and it at about $15,000 to $20,000, it starts bringing it into taxability.
Okay.
And then at over $30,000 of external income external to Social Security, it brings it into like the full Social Security taxability amount, which is it's 85% of the total Social Security is the amount that's eligible to be taxed.
Okay.
So if you got $10,000 of Social Security benefits and you got $30,000 of pension income that you get from retiring from the school district, well, then you're going to have $8,500 of your Social Security will be taxable.
So now taxed on 38.5.
You don't surrender $8,500, but if your tax rate's 10% and you've got $8,500 of $8,500 of your Social Security, then you $850. So
and so that's currently the way it is, and now but the new bill would make it completely
this change
exempt.
would say, hey, if you whatever your Social Security is, it's never eligible for taxation.
Okay.
It's going to be shielded from any tax.
Having just turned 65, this is very exciting for me.
Well, then the other thing I've got is the tips. So tips is a big deal. And, there's a lot of talk out there that this tax bill only helps the rich and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And certainly I've got some discussion points that we can talk about later if you want to talk about it. But certainly,
I got some stuff to get into on this.
It does help the rich, but the rich pay a significant amount of the taxes too.
Right.
So I mean, it's hard to change the tax bill and reduce taxes and not have the rich affected. Obviously,
Of course. But the rich aren't getting tips.
The
but
rich
they
aren't getting
certainly
tips.
will after this law gets passed. How many hedge funds will change their income from cap gains over to tip income?
There you go.
Because I have the right to decide how I'm going to treat that
Well,
money,
I think that's what I say. The devil's in the details.
Yeah, there you go.
If you're in a non-traditionally tipped industry, you're going to have a hard sell to an IRS agent to say that
only if they write the rule that way. You know what I mean?
Which
if
I
they
expect
write
they
to
will.
make it hard, sure.
But here's what I wanted to talk about. Right now, there's a gift exclusion of like $19,000. So
Right.
if you wanted to gift one of your children $19,000, you could do that, and you wouldn't have to affect your unified gift tax credit, right?
Okay.
And so you could, or if John wanted to give you and me $19,000,
Yeah, I can give $19,000 to
each
any
one of us
person.
$19,000,
Yeah.
and then
There's no tax
and there's
involved
no
in that.
tax.
Right.
There's not a deduction
There's no
for it, but
family
there's no
requirement.
income to the recipient,
Okay.
right?
All right.
But if I'm working at a parking cars and I park John's cars and he's like, hey man, thanks, here's $5. I've got to pay tax on that, and all of a sudden my boss has to get involved in what's that.
Right.
And so, but if you take the fundamental nature of what's a tip, it's a gratuity, it's a gift.
Yeah.
And if we consider it under the gift tax limits, unless John gives me $20,000 for parking his car as a tip, then I shouldn't have to recognize any of it as income.
I got to call this out. So most tips, I'm going to throw out a blanket statement here. Most tips go untaxed in our society because cash tips are very rarely reported by the person earning those tips. If you look at the restaurant industry, the bartender industry, they don't generally, I know I'm making a blanket statement here, they don't report cash tips. There's tip compliance that gets done. Credit card tips tips get reported and have to get taxed, but the bulk of the money that comes in cash is entirely untaxed. Todd, you're a CPA. You prepare people's taxes. How many times are your consumers asking you to do, hey, I have this unclaimed amount of tips that I want to pay taxes on?
No. Most of the people who this is going to apply to are in a tip compliance program.
Right.
This is
That's the only ones that's going to help.
This is the hotels. This is the culinary union. I've got a client who's an attorney, and his the bulk of his practice is representing tip compliance.
Okay.
For the culinary union, representing clients, culinary union members who have a problem with the IRS because of tip compliance.
Right, because even the tip compliance
this is dealers. This is a Las Vegas specific issue because it's
Really?
dealers. It's all the dealers are tip compliance.
Yeah.
All of the valet parkers are tip compliance. All of the slot floor people, all of those people.
Well, let me ask you, in light of that, have grocery stores, have fast food restaurants, have all these places started to have to develop tip compliance policies too? Because I'm seeing their tip jars are out.
They've got tip jars, but
it's built into every credit card swipe now.
The thing is the IRS has to get a tip compliance program with each one of these people and with each one of these entities. And to the extent that they don't have a tip compliance program with, say, McDonald's or Burger King, well, I mean, I'm sure they have one with Starbucks, though. Because Starbucks is a typically tipped position, but fast food not so much.
Okay.
So I think that to the extent that this wants to be subject to abuse, I think that the regs are going to be clear enough that hey, if you're in the mortgage industry, you're not a typically tipped position,
right? If
you're claiming that your income is tipped income, you're going to have a Supreme Court case in order to overturn it.